Sure.
Today is October 27th, 2023. I'm again having a chat with Nitin Sarin from Sarin and Company in India. Nitin, great to see you.
Pleasure to be back, Addison.
It's
Thank
been
you
a
for
while.
having me again. It has been a while that our coordination efforts have been strong. I'm glad we finally could get back onto our Zoom call.
Right. So obviously one of the reasons we have not been able to connect up to now is the craziness. India's aviation market is breathtaking. What can I say? What's going on there is absolutely amazing. Perhaps you can give us a sense, since we last spoke, of the incredible activity that's going on there.
Well, just to highlight a few points, which I'm sure we'll talk about in more detail. We have a lot of positives that are happening, namely in the form of Air India Express, and we have a lot of negatives also happening in as much as the Go First insolvency saga, which just continues. That in itself, I think I'm going to touch upon that in the beginning, with your permission, of course. So the Go First saga, as I mentioned, continues. It's still in court, in several courts, in the insolvency court as well as the High Court. Lessors are battling to get their 54 aircraft back. We are inching very, very slowly towards the finish line. But we are stuck in what I call the typical Indian legal system problem, where you have a court which is riddled with 300 cases a day. But we're making progress, slow and steady. But what is very interesting is the government has been fairly proactive in coming out with a new notification. This was on the 3rd of October this year, whereby they have excluded aircraft engines, airframes, and helicopters, essentially using the terms from the Cape Town Convention, from the Indian insolvency law, and from the section of that law that provides a blanket moratorium or stay. So that is very interesting and a very positive move for people going forward. For example, if any airline were to go belly up nowadays, the aircraft engines, etc., would not form part of the estate. Now, the whole question arises as to what happens with the Go First matter. So we've filed applications before the High Court saying that, look, this notification has come out. Please decide in our favor. Now, of course, it's not rocket science to assume that the airline is going to respond by saying, oh, it doesn't apply retrospectively, it applies only prospectively. So that's where we are right now. The matter is coming up on the 3rd of November, and we have fingers crossed that there will be some positive outcome, and soon.
Okay. Well, Indian courts or the Indian legal system is famous for its, shall we say, not accelerated speed.
Well, yes, it is a big problem, and it's a very difficult problem for us to tackle, because I'll give you an example, Addison. Before our case was listed the other day, the judge was dealing with matters where someone's house had been illegally bulldozed. So it's very difficult from a time management perspective to say, okay, here you have 54 lessors aircraft which are standing there, and you have life matters on the other. So it's I would not be very envious of that position.
Right. So another thing that's intriguing about this is the situation with pilots who've gone unpaid, and for some reason these pilots are stuck. They can't move on. It's an international skill set, and there's an international market. And if any of these pilots had an FAA certificate, they could get a job in the United States in about 4 seconds.
Absolutely.
How does it work in India that pilots are stuck, and even though they've been paid for 4 months?
Well, from my understanding of what's happening is that a lot of the pilots who were not under training, who were completely free to join other A320 operators, have done so. It's really the unfortunate pilots who were under training, who had invested a lot of money with the company for their training, who have stuck around to wait and watch to see what happens. But it's from what I'm reading in the press as recently as yesterday, there are lots of employees who are leaving because they simply have not been paid.
Right. That's tough. That's tough. So let's go to some good news. Air
Yes.
India, the giant in the room that seems to be taking every kind of airplane it could get its hands on. And growing
Absolutely.
everywhere. That's amazing.
Absolutely fantastic. And before we talk about their fleet expansion, they have announced a few new positions that have been taken up today.
Right. I saw that.
They've got a few. Yes, they've got a new hire COO. They've got head of flight safety, etc. They've done a huge rejig, so it should be a very interesting move forward. But as I've maintained, what the Tatas have done is they've taken on a behemoth, and they're going to have to try and tame it. But I think they're definitely in the right direction. Two very important facts, regarding their fleet. You may have read in the press recently that Air India Express took delivery of repainted one of their first 737 Max 8s in their new livery, and had a large function and unveiling, etc. So they've already, I believe today is their third aircraft that has landed in India. So they have a very rapid pace of deliveries which are coming up out of their 190 737 Max order book. So that's very exciting, not only for the airline but also for the whole ecosystem that it supports. From our perspective, we are working with lessors who are already in discussions with Air India Express, leasing aircraft to them essentially. So it's a waterfall effect, and absolutely fantastic. We have, over the last couple of sessions, if you recall, Addison, spoken about Gift City and the initiative of where India wanted to promote leasing from Indian shores, where I was always personally very skeptical about the benefits of an operating lessor really coming to Gift. Why would they come and set up something in India when they're getting the same benefits out of Ireland, which has a stable legal system, a predictable legal system, and a predictable government? Very interestingly, airlines in India, starting with Air India and its A350 deliveries, have found a sweet spot as far as Gift City goes. And that lies in finance leases, or capital leases as we call them, where there is no withholding tax on the payments that are interest payments that the airline makes to the Gift City, which the Gift City entity makes to the bank or the financier overseas. So we are going to be seeing a lot of transactions, mainly finance leases through Gift City, which in my opinion is a very positive move, because not only are we promoting Gift, but we are also promoting it in a sense where the Indian operator actually is building some interest or equity in that equipment. We're slowly moving away from that, as I call it, the Gillette syndrome, where you use the razor for a couple of shaves and then you chuck it away. This is a long term where the blade is going to be sharpened again and again and again, which eventually saves a lot of money for the airline.
And I think being internal, it's going to be more predictable in an industry that is so risk averse at the best of times.
Absolutely. And that's what you require at the end of the day. And I think it's important for the government to also understand that we're not going out and chasing to copy what Dublin has done or what Ireland has done. We are every industry finds its own sweet spot, and I think this is really going to be it for the Indian industry. And I believe there are going to be a few more announcements by other airlines also who have interest in this.
You mentioned the Max 8 delivery, the third one now for Air India Express. Of course, CASA is also taking Maxes as quickly as they can. And at the same time, we know that Max deliveries are going to slow down for some time here. That might crimp a few plans.
It may. Yes, indeed. But let's see what they worked out with the OEM and how that impacts the industry as a whole. But definitely there will be there will be some scarring and there will be some not backlash, but some effect of that
Right.
issue cropping up.
Right. Is there any kind of pilot shortage issue in India?
Yes, yes, I think um, there's definitely a lot of attrition, which is a big problem. So we've had, Akasa, for example, recently fighting against their own pilots for, jumping ship. So there is a huge scarcity of pilots, and I think it is just the ability of getting them trained quick enough, getting them online, which has been proved to be a big problem. And very interestingly, we get a lot of queries from training institutes or people wanting to set up, simulator facilities and working on tax, exemptions and, well, wanting tax exemptions similar to aircraft leasing, etc. For, for example, a leasing of simulators. So that indicates that, with people rushing in, wanting to set up such establishments in the country, that there is a huge demand, and
Right.
we are short staffed.
Right. I mean, in aviation terms, India is like this vacuum, just pulling stuff in. It's the way China was many years ago.
Right.
And it's the bottom line is it's fantastic for the industry. Really, it's really good. You mentioned briefly Air India Express.
Yes.
For a long time, I've noticed and in fact, I did a data update yesterday on the Indian traffic. For the longest time, they don't show up. So are they going to start showing up again in the traffic numbers?
Well, I think they should. Yes, I think they should be showing up now. So let's see. Let's see.
SpiceJet, how are they going to come back?
Well, SpiceJet, that's I'm actually glad you bring that up. I believe from news reports and a few court hearings that I have attended, that they are very aggressively trying to mend bridges with lessors and other creditors. But overall, I think they seem to be still in a fairly dismal condition. They have a lot of exposure. They have a lot of creditors. They have a lot of court cases that are going on. But I think by and by they are trying their very best to settle. As far as their fleet goes, I think they are probably the lowest of the low that they can get as far as what a passenger experience would be. I don't think from a passenger experience perspective they are very, very credible or very, a very good airline at the moment.
Right. Well, I mean that if they're hitting the bottom, then hopefully they can turn around. I guess Jet is done, right? That's over?
Well, Jet unfortunately has seems to be on its the deathbed, where the committee of creditors have now moved the Supreme Court of India, saying that the prospective party that wanted to buy it, which has actually deposited several millions of dollars, would not be able to run the airline, and they have asked for the liquidation of Jet Airways. So a very sad end to the airline. It hasn't ended yet, but it is a sad end to the airline and a sad indicator that our insolvency law just does not work as far as aviation goes.
I guess my last item that I want to talk about is the potential for regional airline service in India. I think we've discussed it some time ago once, where we talked about regional airlines and the fact that in India it would just make more sense to fly a full size single aisle like a 320 or a 737 between secondary markets. Do you still think that there is a limited, for example, the Embraer 175 is now working in India. It seems to be doing quite nicely. My sense of it is that Embraer probably should consider putting in some sort of assembly line in the Indian market. Is that a long shot or no? Because there's rumbles.
No, I don't think that's a long shot, for a number of reasons. Number one, I know they have been very aggressive in their marketing in India of late. Earlier this month, Embraer specifically organized a airline seminar and business seminar in Goa. So that's where there were ministry officials, there were airlines, etc. So it's not very far-fetched. And I take the cue from two aspects. Number one, the involvement of Boeing in India. So if you see, Boeing has really upped their presence in the country. I was very recently at they held one of their passenger aircraft finance conferences in Mumbai earlier this month, after I believe a gap of 4 years. And I met so many Boeing executives who were from Seattle but based in India, which is something which never happened earlier. So if that's any indicator of OEMs setting up, whether it's regional or not, I think that the direction is clear, that the government is going to be pushing for OEMs to set up shop, to get some skilled labor in the country to produce such assets. And the second cue that I take is from what one of the highways transport minister said today to Elon Musk, that if you want to come to India, if you want our benefits, our subsidies, you manufacture in India. So I don't see, at least this present government, taking any other stand as far as manufacturing goes.
It's fascinating because it's the vacuum effect. And of course, India is now developing quite a nice niche in terms of aerospace.
Yes, it is indeed. And I say, why not? Because a lot of our talent has flown overseas and is working with aviation industries and OEMs overseas. So it's fairly easy for people to come back. Of course, it's not very easy for any Indian player to suddenly come into the market. And I think that's evident even from the Embraer, Boeing, Airbus saga, where Airbus and Boeing can just simply offer far, far, far better benefits and privileges to their customers than a smaller operator or smaller manufacturer can.
Nitin, thank you so much for your time. Great to talk to you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back.